take all the Batman villains out of jail and turn them into this elite squad in exactly the way that you're describing, and they go fight some alien villain or whatever.
Right. Well, in the 1990s, Janet Reno, Jamie, I like to pronounce her name Gorelick, but I think she prefers it to be pronounced Gorelick.
Yeah.
The woman who put the stovepipes between the CIA and the FBI, and Christine Marcy. And Jamie Gorelick was Christine Marcy's boss. I asked Field the other day what was the increase in incarcerated prisoners during the 90s. He didn't know, but I think it's about 500,000. So at the beginning of the 90s, they had 500,000 Americans in jail. By the end of the 90s, the year before the 9/11 attack, they had 1 million. Well, with 1 million prisoners, you could recruit anyone you like, right, to put together a SWAT team, let's say a Con Air SWAT team, tell them that you're going to pick them up on the 10th of September, let's say hypothetically it might have been at Matsqui Jail up in BC, and you're going to take them by Con Air, or its full name is the United States Justice Prisoner and Alien Transportation System, and fly them down to New York and give them uniforms for the ACE elevator team that were the mechanics, that the words of the journalist, I believe, that scattered like cockroaches when those buildings were being demolished. So inside those two buildings, you had, I think, 85 employees of ACE elevators of Palisades, New Jersey, who were actually maintaining or testing or liquidating the elevators. So that's a wonderful SWAT team to have available if you want to bring the towers down and destroy all the evidence.
But David, don't we have reason to believe that the company Securicom, which was headed up by Marvin Bush for many years, was doing the security upgrades to the building and used some form of paint on nanothermite to rig the buildings for destruction?
Well, I don't think, if you can demonstrate with some facts that is the case, but the beauty of the ACE elevator team is that they upgraded the elevators. And I think their word was the most aggressive upgrade in elevator history, which is a wonderful word when you think that what those elevators did, right? But I think they called it Elevator Times. There's a magazine that came out with a story, I think it was around March of 2001, that this outfit, ACE Elevators, had completed the most aggressive upgrade of any elevators ever in the Twin Towers. And I think there were 6 elevators in each tower that went from the bottom to the top of the building in one go. That is, they didn't stop off at the sky lobby. And that upgrade, very interestingly, was given to a no-name, well, it was given a name, ACE Elevators, but in the annals of elevator upgrades, you would normally give that to a company like Otis, which has obviously got the technology and the experience and the record to do that kind of thing. So ACE Elevators, I believe, had about 6 months of access to the elevator shafts in those Twin Towers. And continuing on with our analysis, we discovered that there's a particular formulation of elevator insulation that is based on a product from Alcoa or Arconic. And incidentally, Arconic was the company that provided the Rano-Bond polyethylene cladding at the Grenfell Tower fire. I don't know if you remember that in London, there was a tower where the thing went up in flames so fast it killed about 200 people. They couldn't evacuate. So if I want to blow up the Twin Towers, and remember going back to Con Air and Christine Marcy, the man who tried to blow up the Twin Towers in 1993 was a man called Ramzi Youssef. Y-U-S-E-F. And afterwards he said, well, give me more money and I'll bring them down next time.
Did Youssef say that?
Yes, he did.
What about that sheik in Jersey City who was somehow linked to Ramzi Youssef, the blind sheik?
Well, that gives a bit of a problem for rigging up elevators with explosives if he's blind.
But he was somehow the spiritual leader of these guys, right?
Well, again, the interesting thing about that is a classic example, and I'm not pointing the finger, of going over to the mens rea. That is to say, if he's the spiritual leader, it's irrelevant in terms of whether or not they put this archonic insulation in the elevator shaft that was designed so you had two sheets of aluminum. I'll give it the American pronunciation. We Brits normally say aluminium, but I guess Field has always given me trouble. So since you're in New York, I'll call it aluminum, right? So you have two sheets of aluminum, which is sandwiching a polyethylene layer, which is not flame resistant. Mm-hmm. So what went into the Grenfell Tower in London was cladding on the outside of the building, where you have two sheets of aluminum and polyethylene interior, which is a kind of insulation, but it's not fire resistant. Now, the fascinating thing here is if you've got the technology, you can hit those aluminum plates with an electromagnetic pulse and get a spark across them. So literally, you could write your flame or your flame pattern. You could mount a laser or some device that bombards the exterior of the building with an electromagnetic pulse.
Even a microwave weapon of some kind.
Microwave weapon, exactly, because sometimes if I put my food in the microwave and leave some, I don't know, aluminium foil or something, you get sparks. It's very impressive.
Correct.
Right? Well, those sparks would be hot enough to ignite the polyethylene or rocket fuel, if it's rocket fuel. Now, rocket fuel is essentially, it would be looking like a viscoplastic polymer, right, where there's a lot of aluminum powder and an oxygen bringer, silicon dioxide or whatever it is, ammonium perchlorate, which brings the oxygen to the fuel, and then you get a very satisfactory temperature of 5,800 degrees Fahrenheit, which is twice the boiling point or melting point of steel, which would give you exactly what you saw in the Twin Towers.
What you're describing, David, makes me think that this may have been the ignition mechanism for this nanothermite compound. So again, in these sort of complex scenarios, trying to unravel what is going on, perhaps the thermite is painted there, and then something along the lines of what you're describing is used to ignite it. A microwave weapon, of course, could be projected from within the building or elsewhere. But Wikipedia is telling us that thermite is a pyrotechnic composition of metal powder which serves as fuel and metal oxide. My understanding is that it's used for things like underwater welding in oxygen poor environments because the compound contains oxygen within it.
Correct. It's also used in fireworks. Right? Essentially, the fuel is the aluminum powder.
Right.
Now, Ramzi Youssef used 100 pounds of aluminum powder in his 1993 bomb. Right? It was quite a sophisticated bomb. And as I say, he said, well, give me more money next time and I'll bring them down, which of course he did. The interesting thing is what happened, who had custody of the Ramzi Youssef SWAT team on 911? Well, Christine Marcy did. Because
why is that?
Well, she took him and put him in ADX Florence, the Supermax jail, right? Side by side with Ted Kaczynski and Timothy McVeigh. Wow. So this woman is basically set up a little